What's up, Tailgaters? You're in the booth with Tailgate Nate today. The road to predict all 136 FBS level college football teams this summer takes us to the south part of Florida. We are in Tampa to talk about the South Florida Bulls, a team that has seemingly been on the verge of emerging in the American Conference, and this year might be the year where the Bulls explode. My name is Nate Pope, otherwise known as Tailgate Nate. Thank you all so much for clicking on this video and for helping to support the channel. If you would like to support the channel even further, well, there are many ways you can do that, but the biggest thing you can do, go down below, hit that subscribe button, and obviously ring that notification bell while you're down there. Turning on notifications will ensure that you don't miss an upload during prediction season. As we round things out, we got just about a month left, and you especially don't want to miss your favorite team if it's in the group of 5 realm, and if I haven't done it yet. I am a sports media graduate delving into the professional world of the industry, so if you want to see all the cool stuff I get to do while still being up to date on what goes on this very YouTube channel, give me a follow on social media at tailgate829 on Twitter or Instagram, and you can even email me, tailgate829@gmail.com. Thank all of you so much for supporting and interacting with me or the channel in whatever way you may be doing so. And now with all of that said and done and out of the way, let us talk about the South Florida Bulls. Their head man, of course, again this year is Alex Golesh out of the newly rebranded American Conference. Again, no longer the American Athletic, it is just simply the American. This is a South Florida team that you've been looking at over the past couple of seasons and been saying, hey, this is the team that can surprise. This is a team that can surprise. I'd watch out for South Florida, and they haven't really lived up to that billing quite yet. However, this is the season, albeit still with a hard non-conference schedule, with a ton of talent, and they could be the emerging power in the American this season. How do we do preview predictions here on the channel? Well, we are going to go through a roster overview, the offense over here to the left, and the defense over here to the right. At the end of the video, we will dive on into the South Florida football schedule. I'll give it a game-by-game preview and prediction, and this video overall is here to tell all of you what I think about the Bulls in 2025. Yes, the shirt and tie is back, and this is a mint green. I'm actually surprised that my green screen is not queuing into it. I was surprised by that. Hey, before we dive on into things, right down below me, returning production numbers are according to ESPN. They factor in portal additions up to a certain percentage. And then even below that, recruiting transfer portal ranks there for the class of 2025. They're according to 24/7 Sports. And let's talk about the Bull offense. Your offensive coordinator this season is going to be Jeff Gordon. And they got, in my opinion, what is one of the most exciting quarterbacks in the group of 5 realm. His name is Byron Brown. And last season, he was coming off of an injury, a broken leg. Ouch. But he seems to be fully healthy, ready to go, at least as healthy as he can be up to this point. Broke it pretty early in the season last year, and look, he has had some really, really good seasons. Quarterback play was not where you needed it to be, especially after Byron Brown went down, and you even could have asked for more from Brown before he broke his leg. 836 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks, on around 59% completion percentage. You definitely could have asked for a lot more, albeit South Florida is known for having some pretty brutal non-conference schedules, and they do again this season. But let's go back to 2023, the year that Byron Brown was the full-time starter, and Brown passed for 3,292 yards, 26 touchdowns, and 11 interceptions on around 65% completion percentage. What's more, you take a look at what he does with his legs in 203 carries. Now, sack yardage is included in that, and he was sacked quite a bit over the past couple of seasons, again, relative to playing time, 38 times in 2023 and 15 times in only 132 pass attempts last season. That is pretty darn frequent, means the offensive line's got to get better. Talk about there when we get there. But what he does rushing the ball, again, you have to factor in sack yardage to this as well, but 809 yards and 11 touchdowns is what he had in 2023 during his full-time starter year. And even last year, 4 yards per carry, 3 touchdowns, 269 yards. He is the epitome of a dual threat quarterback, and it's what makes him, when healthy, one of the most exciting quarterbacks in the G5 realm. If he stays healthy this year, his true power and potential, I think, is going to be unleashed, and obviously he's going to build on what he did last year. If he stays healthy, he will build on what he did in 2023. Mark my words, I think Byron Brown is a really, really good quarterback. When you take a look at your running back room, though, and some of the other pieces surrounding him, well, you are going to be going over some change in the offense surrounding Byron Brown. Your top 3 rushers from last season, that in order were Kelly Joyner. You also did have Naquan Wright, and to round out that trio, it was Teron Keith. All 3 of those guys no longer on the roster. as per my research and knowledge, they have all since graduated, maybe trying their luck in the NFL. Some of them might be there as well. So you do have some new pieces coming in, but they are portal pieces, again, that enter through that 2025 82nd ranked class. Cartavius Norton was a former Iowa State Cyclone and last year rushed with the Charlotte 49ers, also in the American, 525 yards and 7 touchdowns on 4.1 yards per carry. My apologies. And in 2023, 343 yards and 3 touchdowns on 87 carries. By the way, 129 carries last year. So he's been right around 4 yards per carry throughout his career. Not bad at all. And then Sam Franklin is a transfer coming over. Also a redshirt senior. I don't think I mentioned that. Norton, by the way, a true senior, but a redshirt senior in Sam Franklin. Originally was at UT Martin, where he was a pretty solid producing back. Was at Oklahoma over the past couple years and just got lost in a very talented room. I think he's going to be a great addition to this backfield. I really like his potential a lot. And then you do have some returners and stuff that come back that could see some more carries from what they had last year, but it's going to be Norton. It's going to be Franklin. Those are your top 2 guys. Wide receiver room, Sean Atkins. You're going to get him transferring out. 789 yards and 2 touchdowns on nearly 80 catches for him last season. He is going to be going over. Oh, no, sorry. He is not transferring out, but there is some more depth that is going into the portal. I wondered why I lost my thoughts there. Abdur Rahman Yassin has entered the transfer portal. You got Tyree Kelly, who's going into the transfer portal. Naeem Simmons, who is in the transfer portal. So you do lose some pretty solid depth pieces there. However, Jaden Alexis is going to be coming back. Now, you don't see his name over here, but Jaden Alexis is a very sizable name. Again, did not play last season, was a fairly significant part of the passing attack in 2023. He had 280 yards and 2 touchdowns. Again, didn't play all last year. Probably injury issues there as well. Keyshawn Singleton is a big returning piece. He is the second leading receiver, had 408 yards and 3 touchdowns. And among qualified receivers, that's guys with at least 10 catches last year, he did lead the team in yards per catch. So really good weapon there. And you do get some transfers coming in to try to replace that depth, most notably in Chaz Nimrod, who's coming over from Tennessee. Mudia Rubin's a nice transfer. And then Tyler Williams is over from Minnesota. That's a guy that I like a lot. So even though you do lose a lot of talented pieces throughout the skill position room, portal does well to help you supplement that. Even though the class is not highly rated, I think they did well there. Your tight end room, speaking of which, is also set to be all new faces based on what you saw in the 2024 season. Again, like you see with Jaden Alexis, Weston Wolf is going to be coming back to the tight end room. Didn't play last year, and even if he did, I think he only had 1 catch or something along those lines. He was a big part of the offense in 2023, so he's going to get back to that lead tight end role. Wyatt Sullivan is a transfer coming in, and then you have some pretty solid depth. Wyatt Sullivan is in from Florida Atlantic, another American Florida school, and then the offensive line. I talked about it already a little bit, so I won't linger too much on it, but it is an offensive line that has got to see some significant improvement this season. It returns plenty of starters. It adds some good pieces, but man, in total, last season, they allowed 36 sacks, and if you remember from what I said from a couple years ago, they allowed Bowen Byram to get, why did I say it like that? I completely flipped. Byram Brown. If I had been saying this name wrong the entire time, it is Byram Brown. I apologize profusely. Byram Brown got sacked 38 times in 2023. So Brown is a guy that needs that protection, and he needs the offensive line to step up here in 2025. I think that's got to happen for the offense overall to be as successful as it can be. If I had said Bowen at all throughout this, I apologize profusely. Byram Brown, going to be one of the better quarterbacks in G5. Again, his offensive line needs to step up, and we'll see how the transfer portal pieces fit. When you move over to the defensive side of the ball, you talk about Todd Orlando as the defensive coordinator. There were a lot of good things to take away from last season, such as this was a defense that did force quite a bit of turnovers last year. It forced 26 turnovers. It generated 32 sacks. And overall, you would think, hey, that leads to a really a pretty successful season there, right? Well, even though you didn't have Byram Brown last year, I am set to get the name right throughout the rest of this video. Bowen Byram is a National Hockey League defenseman, so I have no clue where that came from. But Even with Brown out, it was not the offense that let the team down last year, ladies and gentlemen. This secondary gave up nearly 280 passing yards per game, and the rush defense was not much better, around 160 passing yards per game. Now, generating the negative plays and the sacks and forcing the turnovers did help, but they allowed opponents to score almost 30 points per game. And even without Brown last year, they were still able to score around 32 points per game. This is a defense that overall, as far as the overall defensive prowess and being able to keep teams from getting into the end zone, that part of this defense needs to take a massive step forward. Now, you do lose a lot of pieces that did help with turnover and sack production last year, most notably on the defensive front, your interior depth. You are going to be losing a lot of guys on the defensive interior. However, there are a lot of transfers coming in that I think are going to fit really well. Josh Seliscar, however you pronounce that last name, former Texas A&M Aggie, former Central Florida Knight. He is coming over here to South Florida and will probably be a massive part on that defensive interior. And then Devin Lee is going to be transferring in from Vanderbilt. Had 15 tackles, half a sack, and was pretty solid a couple years ago over at Vanderbilt. And then again, you have many more. Dre Butler, Trayvon Mitchell, Jacob Merrifield, and all those guys are seniors or graduate students. So a lot of experience coming back there. And your top 3 edge rushing players from a season ago do all return. Michael Williams, Rico Watson, and DJ Harris. All 3 of those guys will be coming back to this defensive line room. Watson had 2.5 sacks a season ago. Williams with 2 sacks a season ago. Harris with 2 sacks. And this was not really a defense that had one guy that was getting all of your sack production. Sometimes you see that when teams get 32 sacks, you got one guy that's disrupting everything. There really were sacks coming from everywhere on this defensive front. No guy had more than 4 sacks last season. And speaking of him, you do get your top 2 linebackers, and they coincidentally were your sack leaders last year in Jalen Schuler and your leading tackler, Mac Harris. Mac Harris had 82 tackles, led the team with 4 sacks, couple passes defended, did recover a fumble, and ran it back for a touchdown there as well. And then Mac Harris, or I should say, Jalen Schuler coming back as well. 3.5 sacks, did have 2 interceptions, which was tied for second on the team last year. So again, there are a lot of nice returning pieces in that linebacker room. You even get Chavez Brown, who is a transfer coming in. Rocco Nickel is back. I really like this linebacking unit. Defensive backfield, well, a very notable defensive back in Brent Austin is going to be gone. Brent Austin, one of the guys that was really, really disruptive on the defensive side of the ball. That was an entire misspeak. I just multiplied 2 numbers together. 10 passes defended, did have 2 interceptions and 1 pick 6 last season. 48 tackles for Brent Austin. Don't know where 20 came from. You can ignore that entirely. So he is going to be gone. He's transferring off to Cal, and there are some other pretty notable losses, but you do get a big returner. Taven Ward, 3 interceptions for him last year, was the 3rd leading tackler on this defense, did recover 2 fumbles here as well. He's going to come back to play that free safety, and you got experience all over this talented secondary unit. Deshaun Rucker, Kawan Banks, Jalen Stokes. Those are all seniors or graduate students. Taven Ward is a redshirt junior. James Chenault is going to be playing corner for you. He's a younger guy, and you do have some transfers coming in to help that out as well. Your primary kicker and punter are both going to be different here in 2025 because, hey, special teams, that matters too, and kickers are people too, so we got to pay them some attention. I believe I misspoke earlier over here when I said they were losing. No. They are losing some good depth pieces. They are actually returning a lot of good pieces that helped with sack production and turnover production last year. Now, do they lose some of those guys? Yes, absolutely. But a lot of your big name players are back, like those 2 linebackers there in Schuler and Harris. You have a really talented secondary unit. Your top 3 edge rushers are all going to be coming back. This is a defense that, look, if it keeps the turnovers and it keeps the sacks. Again, I misspoke earlier when I said that they are losing guys. No. They are returning a lot of those pieces. This is very much so a defense that needs to have the focus on being able to slow down opposing offenses, and that's going to be a lot of trouble because when you take a look at this schedule, especially the beginning of the schedule, even once you get in to American Athletic Conference play, folks, this schedule is not at all easy. Now, you do avoid some pretty major teams out of the American, Tulane being the big one, but you have a lot of heavy hitters, and that non-conference slate, Oh boy, to start out the season, that is just rough. Before we dive on into this, though, FanDuel numbers, you know the drill of with group of five teams, we don't look at their odds to win the national championship. We know it's going to take a lot. We look at their odds to simply get into the college football playoff. Plus 700 in the American is the fifth best odds to win the conference, and the plus 3,500, again, a pretty solid number. A lot would have to happen, yes, and there are a lot of teams they got to get behind, and they have to get through that tough non-conference schedule. It's why that number is probably a lot higher than maybe it should be, but I digress. 6.5 is that over-under win total. It's because of how tough the schedule is, and you look at the first three games of the season. You're at home against Boise State, so you do get a home game against the group of five representative from last year, and still the group of five front runner this year. You're on the road against Florida. You're on the road against Miami. Now, Boise State here, to me, absolutely is the most winnable one out of the bunch. Boise State, who do they lose? Everyone knows it. Ashton Jeanty is gone, as well as some pretty solid defensive pieces. You do lose some good wide receiver talent from a season ago as well. However, Boise State still has a lot coming back. They still have good wide receiver pieces. They still have good defensive pieces, especially that secondary. Oh, they're going to be really, really good on the back end. I still think they got some good rushing potential. The offensive line should still be solid. And most importantly, their quarterback from last season, Maddox Madsen, is coming back. And I think he's going to have himself a really good season. And to me, I think South Florida can compete as well as some of the other G5 teams in the country. I still don't think anyone has passed Boise State as that group of five front runner. And again, Boise State's still going to be very, very dangerous. It is a Thursday game at home in Raymond James. This is a game that, would it shock me if South Florida won it? Absolutely not. Again, I think Boise State can have a lot of trouble trying to defend Byron Brown. And I do believe that there is going to be some chaos to envelop in this game one way or the other. But any way you slice it, I think Boise State's the more talented team. I think I like their head coach just a little bit better. And I think Boise State wins that week one matchup. And it's just going to be really tough to win any of these two next road games. On the road against Florida, unfortunately, I do have that as a loss for this South Florida team as well. Florida's going to be really good this year. And if this defense can't, improve in terms of yardage wise, DJ Lagway, Jaden Baugh, some of these wide receiver pieces, and that Florida offense is going to have a field day against this Bull defense. And the same could be said with Miami as well. Now, I know they lose Xavier Restrepo. I know they lose Damian Martinez. I know especially they lose the quarterback Cam Ward. I think recency bias affecting people a little bit with Carson Beck. I still think there will be moments where the interceptions rear their ugly head, but he's going to get back closer to 2023 for my feel. Maybe not quite there, but he'll be closer to what we saw out of Carson Beck with Georgia in 2023. And this is a Miami team overall that, again, I still like. And even though they're replacing a lot of pieces, I think the defensive front has got a lot of nice pieces to be able to expose what South Florida's weakness could be on offense, and it very well could be their offensive line. Again, struggling as it has over the past couple of seasons, needing to see improvement. You go up against the defensive front with a ton of big bodies. You could say the same thing about Florida in that conversation there as well. So really, really rough start to South Florida. Again, they are no stranger to these rough starts. They have tough non-conference schedules, at least it seems like that over the past couple of seasons, but you are going to get your first win. I think your first couple of wins pretty quickly afterwards. You do get South Carolina State at home. I think that's a pretty easy win to be able to kick off the wins in this 2025 campaign. And then you take a look at Charlotte here as well. After the bye week, you get an extra week to prepare for a Charlotte team that honestly I don't really think you need it. I much rather would have had that bye week before that North Texas game on the road. Talk about why here in a second. But this is a Charlotte team that I just don't anticipate being very good this season. I don't think they're going to compete well, and Biff Poggi has not done it for me as a head coach. So South Florida, more talented. They should win that game. And even though I think South Florida is going to go on the road and beat North Texas, Chandler Morris is out, and I don't think they have the overall offensive pieces that they did last season to be able to absolutely gel and just get right on top and over this South Florida defense that really struggled last season. And while it could see improvement, could still have its moments of struggle this year. Again, you especially lose that when Chandler Morris is gone. I still think North Texas is going to be a feisty team. Now, I do have it as a win for South Florida. I think South Florida is going to win the game. But man, this North Texas team, I think they're going to be scrappy. I think they're going to fight. I like their head coach a whole lot. And look, they do still have some solid pieces under Eric Morris. I still like some of the backfield pieces they have. I still like some of the wide receiver pieces. I think they did really well defensively in the transfer portal. Now, there is a lot that's going to have to mesh and fit in well, and they probably do win one big game this season because I think Eric Morris is a pretty good game planner. However, in replacing a lot and trying to fill in a lot of pieces, North Texas could see their moments of struggle. And again, they don't have the offensive dynamite, at least proven-wise, that they did last season to be able to expose a defense in South Florida that I think could have still some issues this year, even if they do show improvement. The South Florida offense will be too much on the road in that one. Florida Atlantic is coming up at home, and they're going to get a chance to envelop themselves in a new system, the Zach Kitley system. And guess who's the quarterback over there? Caden Veltkamp. I think Florida Atlantic, while it's going to take a little bit for the program to settle in and some of these pieces around to gel, I think Florida Atlantic can be a little bit of a surprise to a lot of people out there. But I do believe getting this one at home, yes, you have a dynamic offensive-minded Zach Kitley running the show. You're going to have another really good offense here with all the portal pieces and returners. And, of course, what I think is one of the best quarterbacks in the G5 in Byron Brown. And, again, his dual threat ability will be too much for the Al defense that I think could really struggle this season. Now you get into the fine meat of this American schedule, and it starts off here, Saturday road game, week 9 against the Memphis Tigers. And a lot of people around the American circuits know Memphis lost everybody, and I mean everybody, from a season ago. Seth Hennigan, most notably at the quarterback position. Yep, he's gone. Wide receiver pieces, replacing them. Running back pieces, replacing them. Defensive pieces, replacing them. And it seems like Memphis, after, again, a very, very good track record under Ryan Silverfield, is expected to take a step back this year. I don't think it's going to be by much, though. I do think they have some really good pieces that come in through the transfer portal, especially a quarterback in Brendan Lewis, and they loaded up on defensive transfers, especially experienced pieces that I think are going to be solid as well. And this is a Memphis team that has set a really good foundation. They're a program that, while they are replacing a lot, never usually rebuilds. They retool. They use the transfer portal to do it this year, and I think they're going to retool pretty darn well. I still think they're going to be one of the best teams in the American Athletic Conference, and they're going to be a tough out on the road, even without Seth Hennigan and some of the more experienced offensive pieces. I think there are going to be moments this season where the Bulls defense just can't find anything at all and can't create the turnovers, can't create the sacks, on top of struggling to slow teams down. I think they're going to have a lot of moments like in that North Texas game where they could struggle to slow a team down, like Florida Atlantic, where they could struggle to slow a team down, but the sacks, the tackles for loss, the turnovers, they help them. I don't think this is going to be one of those cases. I think you go on the road and lose this game at Memphis. Solid foundation set. Even though they're replacing a lot, they're still going to be one of the best teams in the American Conference. You do get a bye week here and a Thursday game at home against UTSA. Now, I like UTSA a lot, and I just don't think they are going to have the season that Jeff Traylor and company had last year, where they went 6-6 and just really underperformed to what the program standard has been over the past couple of seasons. Well, this is a UTSA team that I think can have their moments of struggle. And again, South Florida is going to see their moments where the defense will put together good performances and bounces of the balls, turnovers, and it especially can happen in home environments on weekday games, especially coming off of a bye week. You get an extra week to prepare for this UTSA team, albeit I like Owen McCallum at quarterback. I think they got some nice skill position pieces, and defensively, well, that's probably where the issue lies, right? You do lose a lot of heavy hitters from last season, and slowing down Byron Brown is a lot easier said than done. I think UTSA loses that game, meaning South Florida wins it. And this game here against Navy is definitely the most tricky one to predict left on the schedule. Again, it all depends on what this defense is going to do. Now, again, the secondary is was by far the weakest point on the defense last year, not that front line. But with the way Navy runs the ball, and with the way that Blake Horvath is able to produce, and with the way he runs the show with the Navy midshipmen, I think the Bulls are really going to struggle against this Navy offense, and this Navy defense might very well, apart from those 3 first games that they play in non-conference, that Navy defense might be the toughest one you face in the American Athletic Conference. And for those reasons, I also do think Navy is probably the second or third best competitor to Boise State in the G5 realm to be able to get that college football playoff spot, and it's because Blake Horvath is that quarterback. No matter, though, I do think you went out against two teams I don't think are going to be very good this season. UAB, I've never been a fan of Trent Dilfer as head coach, and I don't think that's going to change this year. And Rice loses EJ Warner, Dean Connors, lots of good defensive pieces. That's a team that'll reel and struggle a little bit this season. So 7-5 is where I get South Florida with a pretty darn good record in conference play. So the 7-5 is misleading. Again, college football, the biggest lies. You are what your record says you are. You take a look at those first 3 games, brutal. But beyond that, they win 7 out of their last 9, and 6-2, depending on some of the other chaos that may go on in the American Athletic Conference. I said American Athletic, they rebranded, sorry, the American Conference. They very well could reach for an American Championship game spot and possibly a CFP spot as well. They can beat Memphis and they can beat Navy on the road. Saying that, they can also lose on the road to North Texas. They can lose to Florida Atlantic and UTSA. Very interesting team, very interesting schedule. Think they got a lot of good talent, but I think the year for them to really emerge has got to come this season if they're going to do so. That's all for the Bulls. Let me know what you think in the comment section below, and remember to play hard but tailgate harder. See y'all in the next video. Goodbye.